I don't want to offend you, but I don't believe in organized religion. I don't either. I said to them, you know what, sister? I don't believe in organized religion either. I believe in a personal relationship. Get down on your knees, talk to God, read the Bible for yourself. Right. What does the Lord say to you? You open up this book and pray and ask God to open up and begin to build your life on his words, and believe me, your house will stand. That's the foundation that we're talking about. I don't know what you're hearing, brother, but if you come to my church, any of my 4 services on Sunday morning, you hear me preach or my father preach, that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear the Word of God. You're not going to hear tradition. You're not going to hear politics. I refuse to be a politician because politicians represent the people. I am a man of God. I represent him. I represent his ideas. I represent God's theories. If you want me to get up and spout homosexuality or spout some social idea of the day, I'm not going to do that. Leave that to your politicians. I am going to spout what God said because I work for him. I don't work for you. I work for God. I am his man. I am a man of God. That's what I do. Now, I'm not a politician. Refuse to be a politician. So that's where we are.
This is going to be the last question of the day. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Joe. Religiously, I'm a Baptist. My parents are Baptists, all from South Carolina, Georgia. And I believe in quoting scriptures. But 1963, when they had the March on Washington, it wasn't like, I'm a Baptist, you're a Lutheran. I mean, you look at the stage, you saw all those hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters. They were all denominational. I'm not even denominational. They were agnostics. Some of those people were atheists. And the issue of the march was not just spirituality, but morality. I don't hear anybody talking about morality nowadays. And that's what I think why, all these different sects of people, whether you're agnostic, Rastafarian, I mean, how do we get back to this moral and cultural righteousness? I try, but when you use that word righteousness, it sort of have a religious connotation. But I'm just saying morality. You know what I'm saying? Being a better person. I mean, we seem to stray away from that and be divisive. I worship Allah, you worship Yahweh, you're a Jehovah's Witness, want to run in the house because you're trying to give me a watchtower or a wake. So I mean, I talk to people of all different religions, and I tell them I'm a Baptist, and don't try to draw me in religion because I have my own separate beliefs, but I can talk to you. Right. And we all should, want to do the right thing. We all should not steal. Even follow most of the 10 Commandments and thousands of other things. So, I mean, what we need to do, and what I like to see us do, is to try to get back to what we did 30 years ago when they had the
civil rights. So the question is, how do we get back to the,
how do we get back to the old way?
Thank you. How do we get it?
I think the word righteous means to be standing right with God. That's what righteousness is. Righteousness is not your interpretation of righteousness because cultures change. I remember 25 years ago, I'm 30 years old, but I've heard my dad tell me about how there was a time when wearing a tie was considered worldly. I mean, right now, if you're wearing a tie in this room, you would be considered worldly 35, 40 years ago in some churches. Yep. And there's a whole debate about earrings. Listen, I don't care about where your earrings, it doesn't matter. The thing, righteousness is in right standing with God. What does it mean for God to say, you're cool? You're down. You're down. That's what I'm saying to my young people. You're walking up to the Lord and you're saying, God, what do I got to do to be down with you? And that's what the people asked Jesus in John chapter 6. They say, yo, Jesus, check it out. I've heard this, I've heard that. Cut your hair. Do this. Wear that. What do I have to do to be down with you? What's the work that God requires? And Jesus said, the work of God is this, to believe in the one that he has sent. Righteousness means that you're standing in the right place with him. That God says you're all right. And that's the question you're asking. That's the question I'm asking young people. Are you standing right with God? Are you down with him? Are you in his clique? Are you in his gang? Does he say you're cool? Because if he says you're cool with me. And if that's what you need to ask yourself, that's the place you need to be. And I believe I'm trying to teach them that. I'm trying to do that. I think it's difficult for us all when we begin to talk about these issues because it's difficult. Jesus said that a house divided against itself cannot stand. So many times when we get into these debates, I don't do this. I don't debate because if we can't agree, agreement is the place of power. Most churches, traditional churches, are run democratically. And I do not believe that God is democratic. God is theocratic. Our church is theocratic. We don't vote for nothing in my church. Maybe that's why I have almost 4,000 people. I don't know. But I tell you one thing, I'm not voting. People didn't vote me into my position. And they didn't vote my father into his position, and that's not how it works. Now, that's politics. And Listen, it's difficult enough to get a church itself to agree with itself beyond all the other different churches. I mean, I love your pastor. He preached in my church. Praise God for him. But there are different ways in which we do things, and how we work together. We're going to try to work together the best way we can. But agreement is the place of power. And if we don't agree together as a people, we won't ever be able to do anything. And so we're going to have to agree on some things. And so I think that the people who really do agree should work together, that they agree. If they agree together, they have power.
I think that a lot of times we try to come up with a real quick fix when it took us a long time to be destroyed as a people. There's many ways in which we've been destroyed, so there's not just one answer. And I think if we could at least agree on that, then we could come to the table and say, well, hey, this is what I have, and you could come and say, this is what you have, and how are we going to, come together and make this family of God work.
Thank you for your time. Go on to the social center in Boston. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Walter Applewhite, and I'll be one of your moderators this afternoon. My co-moderator is Lawrence Nelson.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Good.
This is actually one of the panels that are near and dear to me, because one of the challenges to keeping Boston's Black resources is promoting a healthy social life. When you get out to work and we put on our masks and deal with corporate America or whatever extension that you're dealing with, you need some type of outlet. And whether it be going out, artistic work, poem readings, you need some type of social activity or some type of social outlet. So today we brought together a panel. The diversity on the panel is very interesting. We have everything from artists, promoters, entertainment scouts, and I would like to introduce the panel to you. To the end, we have Darius McCrory from Higher Level Entertainment. Next, we have Brenda Butler Hamlet from Conley's. Yeah. Next, we have Michael Curry from Afrocentrics. Next to him, we have Uriah Israel from Scribe Magazine. Help me with it. Next, we have Ekwa Holmes, who's an artist. And next to her, we have Terrell Calloway of Calloway Entertainment. I would like to open the panel discussion up by asking, what are some of your perceptions of Boston's social scene? Anyone can answer.
One thing I'd like to mention is that the reason that I created Scribe, publication Scribe, because I thought there were different things, events happening in the city, as far as artists, local jazz spots. But we could not find anywhere that listed these particular events. And so as I began to look for other means of social entertainment, I said, I was meeting people in these different circles, and they would say, what's going on? What's going on? And I said, did you hear about this spot? Did you hear about that spot? It wasn't a great deal, but it was enough to at least keep you a little bit satisfied. But it wasn't really being publicly put out there to the right crowd, I should say. Events would be in the Boston Globe, the calendar, and maybe radio stations that we might not particularly listen to. So I felt we need to still create a vehicle that targets this audience right here.
I guess where I would start off would be that there really isn't an entertainment scene for us out there. I started my company some 18 years ago, Nine Lands Down. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but
Oh yeah.
the environment has changed significantly due to a lot of problems that, as a black promoter, I've had with clubs dealing with violence. Not a lot of violence, but the violence that happens, just like in our community, it reflects upon the whole community. Therefore, we get the real bad end of things. So, I guess the problem today is dealing with the politics of even getting venues. Everyone knows to get a venue in Boston to throw any kind of entertainment event that focuses on a black market is very difficult. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have many things for you to put in your magazine for us. And those are sort of some of the things I'd like to hear from you all, how you all feel about that, and what would be some of the solutions in terms of rectifying, which is something that's a major problem in our community.
Yeah, just to follow up what Terrell was saying, the venue issue is probably the biggest issue right now. It's next to impossible to get some of the really good big venues to let us go in there and do things. And what happens is you have a lot of promoters who try to start new nights, Thursday night, every Thursday or every Friday. And what happens is the clubs put such high financial demands upon the promoters that it becomes impossible for the promoters to meet those financial responsibilities to keep it going long enough for a crowd to develop or for a following or for the word to get out there. And that's why you have that phenomenon where, you'll get a flyer saying grand opening and then, 2 weeks later, it's not there anymore. There's a $3,000 bar minimum, and then there's the insurance aspect, and then, there's all the money and all the costs involved in the marketing and promotions and paying the DJ and all of the expenses. And, it's a lot harder, and it costs a lot more than most people realize. And so without venues that we control, it becomes very difficult. And the other issue is that now you have a lot of club owners who promote their own nights. So they're not willing to give up their nights because now they're getting both the door and the bar. Whereas before, if they let a promoter come in, they gave up the door and they just got the bar proceeds. But it's more lucrative for them to get both the door and the bar. So they're not willing to give it to us, especially when they already have the perception that if they give it to us and we go in there, there are going to be fights, and going to be a lot of damage and other issues like that. So those are the types of things that we have to deal with.
I come from a different perspective, and one is of ownership. And fortunately, at the time that I had Congress, it was not a problem for us to give up a night to promoters. We welcomed it, and we did keep the bar. Unfortunately, politics play a major role in any venture that someone that looks like us dare to venture. And what presents the problem is if you're not in accord with the politics of at the time, eminent domain is an issue. It becomes a very prominent topic that one gets involved in. And as any of you who know where Congress used to sit, we were told immediately that something was going to be built on that property. It's been a year later and nothing's there but grass. It's not just me as someone, a small business person, but any person of magnificent or financial magnitude that looks like us. There's always a political entity looking to tear it down. And unfortunately, our survival depends on whether we cater to the larger population rather than our population. You have, I can recall Satch's Place and the menu trying to go north, as I call it, rather than south. And when it went north, it was competing with the larger establishments and made it difficult. We had a cuisine that was Southern, really Southern, and stayed there. And I had many chefs come in and ask to do upscale. I don't want upscale. I'm catering to our people. We don't want petite pois, you know. I want fried chicken and fried fish, pan-fried fish. And people were coming from across the state, out of state, to visit just for the food on the weekend. And we had great jazz groups. I find that politics in Boston, and I often call Boston, if any one of you know me, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me. I always say I live up south. And I find that very much so in anything that we try to do. Another problem I find out that those of us who think we have arrived, I always say we haven't unless we reach back to one of you and bring you along and teach you the business. So we find ourselves often losing out because we have not brought you along, and you are our future. And how do we expect any legacy to survive if we don't do so?
For a person who came back here from Minneapolis-St. Paul, grew up here, went to college in Minneapolis-St. Paul, came back to Boston. I've always been a club person. I was a DJ. So when I got back to Boston, I was frequenting spots like Terrell's and JC and so many other people. And one of the things that always bothered me was this whole thing which I call black tax, which is some of us represents all of us. So if you get a knucklehead at Terrell's spot, then there's no more so-called black night at Vincent's, or no so-called black night at Club Jordan. And we get moved around like cattle. And that's always been my beef. And I think Darius and a lot of us from Native Sound, higher level, a lot of us young promoters who aren't on the ego thing, Terrell, some other folks, we come together. One of the things we often talk about is owning our own. Yeah. Which, you know, Sister Fuconnelly's, the brother Williams, the Williams family from Estelle's, not many people own their own clubs. And this city's sort of on lockdown in terms of opening new clubs that we own. So that needs to happen. I think another point that I wanted to make was around some of the experiences we had at Afrocentrics. There's a term we use in Afrocentrics called a scarcity mentality, which is because Boston has so few, when we have one or two, everyone jumps on that same boat and sinks it. And we experienced that sort of with Afrocentrics, that everybody wanted Afrocentrics to be what they wanted it to be. And it couldn't satisfy everybody. We need the diaspora of experiences. We need a poetry venue that's like New Orleans, something that's like the Boston vibe, something. We have a few spots that have started up here recently, and I don't think many of them have lasted. That's a sad story to tell, because I know there are many positive young black brothers and sisters who would frequent you know, some of these spots that have opened up, and we can get into further as to the reasons they don't. But we think one of the reasons was from Afrocentric, the scarcity mentality. There's too many bougie people there. There's too many street people there. It's too revolutionary. It's too bougie. It's not Afrocentric enough. There's too many sexual poems, too many revolutionary poems. We got into so many people that came with a different gripe every week that we were getting frustrated with doing it. And our intention when we started it was to get the wide range of us into the room. And I want to say I'm not pessimistic as a result of doing it, but I don't know what the solution is to that. Can a wide range of us be in a room together? And that's something that we need to deal with.
Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Aqua Holmes. I'm an artist and an entrepreneur in the Boston area, and I have owned a couple of galleries over the last 20 years. The visual arts as entertainment is relatively new compared to, say, nightclubs and concerts and those kinds of things. So visual artists have unique problems in developing audiences. And I happen to be a part of this panel today to try to learn from you how we can engage you in our artistic expression, how we may collaborate with some of the other people at the table who are doing other kinds of things, because I have found our greatest success is through collaboration and sharing. And that will just be
I just wanted to continue and say, I was an owner of gallery. I owned the gallery. When I first started the gallery, I came in as a promoter. I eventually gained ownership after a year. And my main problem with the ownership aspect is when people keep on coming back, well, Terrell, why don't you open up another club? I found that owning a nightclub could be very, very taxing. One of the major problems with the gallery during its rise to fame was during the time when we had a high level of gang violence in the city. So what happened in our club was a microcosm of what was going on in the city. And we couldn't help it. It was a small percentage of those people coming into the club and ruining it for everybody. So that was our main problem. But just to say that it's very difficult I want to listen to people when they say, Terrell, open up why don't you come and open up a club? But it's very difficult to go back to that, although, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Can I ask you, in terms of support from the people you were giving these events for, what type of support did you get in dealing with the administration and the police and the...
Politically, it was very difficult. You're dealing with a very, very tough political system. I think the way it's set up is almost to fail for black folks trying to do anything in the city. And it was just the joy I got out of it was to see people come and have a good time, but it was just very hard going to the hearings. I mean, constantly I was calling up political officials to come, help us stay open another month. But I don't think I would ever do it again.
You asked about support. I had a lot of support from the people that came to the club to keep it open. And I am a person who really put myself out there in supporting others. As far as political officials, well, I know most of them. I know all of them. I grew up with a lot of them. And stepping up to the plate would have been detrimental for some of them. Sometimes, I wonder what they think about when they honor Martin Luther King, who dared to stand up. Will they dare to stand up? And that's a question that I have for a lot of them. And often that's a question they can't answer. I'm not rich because I stand up. I'm wealthy because I have lots of love. But let me just say this. In terms of the club itself, I created an atmosphere where a woman could come and sit and not be hassled by anybody she did not want to be hassled by. And the same for a single guy coming in. You didn't have to be hassled by a lady looking for a man. It was nice. Women coming in alone or even in a group were escorted by my son to their cars. We had a good safety factor. Sometimes when you're beginning to succeed and it looks like it's going somewhere, powers that be step in and say, we don't want you here anymore. And then they use us to destroy us. And that's a faction that happened, and it runs true for us historically. When somebody sees us doing good, who doesn't look like us, they change their mind and gather a group of us together and dangle a carrot. And we take a bite. We never own the whole pot. We only own that one carrot. So we destroy us. But that is not to sit here and complain, because I had happy days at Connolly's. And frankly, I'm not a bar person. I love music, any kind of music. I'm a poet. I love poetry. And I love to cook. So it was a pleasure just to cook, sometimes for people. My perception of the scene here in Boston for all of you who are much younger than I am, and I could probably be many of your mothers, it's dismal. Because I think you deserve, I know, it's not that I think, I know you deserve more. I know you deserve your own. And it encourages me when I can hit the internet and see young blacks standing up and know their constitutional rights, know their rights as a citizen, know what's out there, and are sharing the information with each other. So for me, there's hope. And I can go to sleep with my eyes closed and never wake up again and know that you have the wherewithal to come together like you are today, to do something about what's happening for and to you. And I appreciate that. So for Conley's, you know, we look forward to doing something again, opening again. My daughter's working on that for some of you who asked me. And I will hope that the atmosphere continues to be one where anybody, it doesn't matter if you're a person pushing a cart on the street. If you knocked on that door, you came to that kitchen door and you needed some food, I gave it to you. It didn't matter if you had $1 million, and some people did coming in there, and all they wanted was a drink or just to sit there and have some conversation. Those kinds of atmospheres and environment we must create in our establishments that we have for our people so that everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels welcome. It doesn't matter who you are or what talent you bring. It should be something that we appreciate. We are talented people. And anything that works for us, I look at breakdancing and I say, my gosh, they made a movie out of it. I look at corn braids, and many years ago, people couldn't go and get a job with corn braids, but then Bo Derek made a movie that said 10. And it's fashionable. You know, so I have all these things that I grew up with that I hope you, it seems like you're encountering again.